All right, perfect.
Okay, Yolanda, are we ready?
You are all set.
Great. Thank you, Sarah. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to a regular board meeting of the Board of Directors of the East Bay Regional Park District. And today is January 11th, 2022, and we are starting at 1:36. And Madam Clerk, can you please do a roll call?
Yes, President Rosario. All of the board members, please leave your cameras on. Everyone else, cameras off. Thank you. Director Waspi?
Here.
Director Coffey?
Present.
Director Corbett?
Here.
Director Eccles?
Here.
Director Wieskamp?
Here.
Director Lane?
Here.
President Rosario?
Here.
General Manager Landreth?
Here.
Deputy General Manager Alvarez?
Here.
AGM Ocker? Here. AGM Cook?
Here.
AGM Johnson?
Here.
Who am I missing? Chief Chiabaro?
Present.
AGM O'Connor?
Present.
Legislative Government Affairs, Eric Fueler? Sorry.
Here.
AGM Kelchner?
Here.
I believe I called AGM Cook. And did I miss anyone? And sorry, District Counsel Slater. All present.
Thank you. And then I think I will ask Director Coffey if you'd like to do the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for which stands
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And Yolanda, would you like to read the land acknowledgement?
Yes, President Rosario. The East Bay Regional Park District's headquarters is located within Huichin territory on the unceded lands of the Ohlone Chochenyo speaking peoples, who have continuously lived upon this land since time immemorial. The lands now encompassed within the boundaries of the East Bay Regional Park District are the ancestral territory of the Ohlone, Bay Miwok, and Delta Yakut. Today's Ohlone, Bay Miwok, and Delta Yakut people are thriving, vital members of the Greater Bay Area community. They remain intrinsically connected to the land they have stewarded since time immemorial. So please join us in recognizing and honoring this land and their ancestors, elders, descendants, and all other members of their communities. Thank you.
Thank you. And then the first order of business under Executive and Legislative Division is a resolution recognizing the March 4th, 2020 proclamation of a state of emergency by Governor Newsom and authorizing remote teleconferencing meetings of the legislative bodies of the East Bay Regional Park District for a 30-day period pursuant to the Brown Act provisions as permitted by AB 361. Any discussion?
So moved.
There's a second.
Second.
Second by Beverly Lane. Roll call vote, please.
Yes, Director Coffey,
Aye.
Director Corbett,
Aye.
Director Eccles,
Aye.
Director Lane,
Aye.
Director Waspi,
Aye.
Director Wieskamp,
Aye.
President Rosario.
Aye.
That's unanimously approved.
Great, and that now brings us to 1A, our annual rotation of the Board of Directors. And as the outgoing president of the board, I just wanted to let everyone know that it's been a privilege and an honor, and all the successes that we've enjoyed, and some of the and a lot of the pandemics that we've come across. I couldn't have done it without the cooperation of my fellow colleagues on the board, the executive team, and of course, the people out in the field who are representing us and keeping our public safe. I think one of the things that as president, I've realized is that one thing that is constant is change. And it's something we have to embrace, and change brings resiliency. And I think the Park District and the people in the Park District have shown that being resilient is part of our culture. And I want to welcome the new changes. Our new general manager, Sabrina Landreth, the first woman to represent the Park District in its history. And also changes in welcoming in HR, Allison Cook, welcoming Alma Barnes in Risk, welcoming Robert Kennedy and Mast, welcoming our new general counsel, who will be introduced in the next in the consent calendar. These are all indications of how many people have come into the Park District. And I also want to say something to the people that have left the Park District for retirements or promotions to other agencies, that every one of you has contributed to the Park District in a wonderful way, built on its legacy. And we welcome these new people here to leave their mark, and it's your opportunity. And changes will continue to happen. You'll see changes on the board in the next, every election, there's always potential for change on the board. And our job here is to make sure that we build a structure that is built for the future and to bring us forward. And with this new era, I wish you all well. And I think you're all wonderful people. We have wonderful goals, and just remember to be kind to each other, and that'll take us a long way to where we want to go. But I really appreciated my time as president, and I thank you very, 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 very much. And I leave you in good hands here with my colleague and vice president, now president, Director Colin Coffey. He's very progressive. He's very well versed in democratic principles, and he's also incredibly well versed in environment, and he especially knows his parks. So with that, I hand it over to you, my good friend.
Just put it there.
And we'll put it right there.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Just so I can read it. I want to really thank you, Di Rosario, for your leadership this past year. I have learned many lessons from observing your conduct of these meetings, as well as just your general legislative style. Your focus at these meetings on kindness, civility, inclusion. I've learned from you, and your keen ability to simply listen to people, and your keen ability to speak always kindly. That is a combination that I can only hope and strive for, and very much appreciate what you've done for us this last year. I wanted to share, I think this is the point, a gift from the Park District. And I don't know if you want to take that off the show, or maybe you want to keep that on there.
Oh, that's so cool.
Oh, you can take it off. It is really cool, and maybe you could hand it, show it to the camera. There you go.
Can you see that? That's very cool.
He will take care of it.
Very nice.
We're smiling, by the way.
Thank you so much. Oh.
We were very much smiling, yes.
And I like that I'm in my Hawaiian shirt. Thank you all.
So first of all, this is a tremendous honor. I really feel it. And I'm very much looking forward to working closer with my colleagues and management over the next year. I sense a new energy in this organization, and it's fueled by new management, as you recited, new management organization that I've learned of. It's been fueled by all the new, around 40 new employees that will be coming into this organization over the course of the next year. New funding that we know is available from the state and from the federal government. And if the scientists are correct, and this surge eventually burns itself up, we can look forward to continuing opening more to the public, and in particular in-person contacts through programs and facilities. So I have a lot of appreciation for the work you folks do and the energy that you've gathered and are bringing forth so robustly. Would other members of the board like to comment at this time?
Yeah, I just want to compliment Dee on his year. You know, it's been a turbulent year and a challenging year, and I think you've been president, showing a lot of grace and fairness, and been gracious with all of our challenges. So I hope you feel proud of the year that you had here, and I hope you'll enjoy the next year without quite so many expectations on every hand as you pass them on to Director Coffey. So congratulations again.
Thank you. Director
Wieskamp.
Dee, I just think you're a tremendous individual. You are low key, you don't assume anything automatically. You just sort of take everything for what it is and you make something wonderful out of it. Not everybody can do that. Even if something comes across as it's maybe going to be negative, you find a way to work around that. And I really respect that, because that's not easy to do, because we all have strong emotions these days. But I'll tell you, it's been a good year for the Park District in that so many people I know who have never been in parks have been there and are enjoying them. And I think I'll tell them over and over again, we've got a great organization, but this past year, we've had a great leader. So thank you so much. I really appreciate you.
Director Waspy.
Well, Dee, thank you so much. It's been a crazy, crazy year with everything going on, and you met the challenge. I'm very, very proud of you, and I think your genuine courtesy and your compassion shone throughout the year, and your expression of being each other was a great expression, especially during this last year. So thanks. It's hard to believe, but I'm so proud to have known you and worked with you for 46 years in the Park District. So congratulations, buddy.
Director Eccles.
Yeah, Dee, thank you so much for your kind, compassionate, dedicated leadership. It's been another tough year, but you made it look relatively easy. You have such grace and such skill, and it's really did a wonderful job of leading us through this year. And
I'm in a meeting
making
by Zoom, so call me back, please.
so that we were able to accomplish a lot in spite of what was happening out there in the world. So thank you, Dee. Really appreciate your leadership.
Director Corbett.
Congratulations, President. But let me also, of course, congratulate Dee for an amazing year. of all years to be the president with all of the various different challenges that we've had to deal with because of, health issues and making sure that the parks are open and available for folks to be healthy. But Dee, you're just such a kind person who's always willing to take on hard jobs, difficult jobs, and make them look good. You spent so much time out in the parks physically, hiking and being with staff and, using your many years of historic experience to make us look even better. So thank you for just always being there. I know you put tons and tons of hours into the job. So thank you so much. You're great.
Thank you, directors. Any other comments? All right, I'm going to ask the clerk of the board, should we go back and do the Brown Act recital, Madam Clerk? I can start that. Today's meeting is held pursuant to the Brown Act as amended by AB 361. Board members and staff may participate via phone, video conferencing, and this meeting is a hybrid that we are at today of an in-person attendance with board members, designated staff, and members of the public. We are also providing live audio and video streaming and have provided the public the opportunity to submit written comments and call in for public comments for an item on the agenda or a staff report, and to call in and leave voice messages. And Madam Clerk, could you recite the vehicles by which public comments may be submitted?
Yes, President Coffey. Public comments may be submitted in one of three ways: via email to myself, Yolanda Burial Knight, at yburial@ebparks.org, via voicemail at 510-544-2016, leaving a message, and we will transcribe it and give it to the board, and it will be made a part of the public record, or by joining via the Zoom link, which is listed on the agenda posted on the district's website. Public comments will not be read at the meeting, but included in the final board packet. All comments and letters that were received before 3 p.m. deadline yesterday have been distributed to the board and will not be read at the meeting.
Thank you, Madam Clerk, and we did in fact get a distribution of public comments. With that, we will move to the approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion?
I'll move.
Director Rosario, a second. I heard somebody. Director Wieskamp.
Fine.
And Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Yes, President Coffey. Director Cronin,
Aye.
Director Eccles,
Aye.
Director Lane, aye. Director Waspy,
Aye.
Director Wieskamp,
Aye.
Director Rosario, aye. President Coffey,
Aye.
unanimous.
So the next matter for our agenda is public comment on items not on the open session agenda. Madam Clerk, do we have any?
Yes, President Rosario, we currently have four members that have sent an email in advance to let me know they had a public comment. They're going to be in this order: Chris Newey, Ellie Suzuki, Carmen Gutierrez, and Meadow Darcy. Each of you have 3 minutes.
All right, so I believe you said Chris is first.
Yes.
Thank you. Go ahead, Chris.
All right, thank you. My name is Chris Newey, president of ASME Local 2428, labor union that represents a majority of the Park District employees. President Coffey, Board of Directors, General Manager Landreth. I want to start by stating that today, as far as the Alameda County 7-day average for COVID positive cases is now 4 times higher than it was the previous last year's January. That being said, AFSCME found out yesterday that the district has made a change in its policy, which contradicts what the written district COVID prevention plan states. And this is in regards to when employees are exposed, do they need to get tested before they return to work? And I'll just tell you a little bit about my situation. My son tested positive for COVID over the weekend. So it was Sunday night. When I informed the district staff that, what had happened and that I wouldn't be coming into work and I was going to be, going to get tested, I was informed that I wouldn't have to stay home, that because I'm fully vaccinated, I could still come into the office. Luckily, I have an acting manager that authorized work from home, making that unnecessary. But it was still very clear that if I wanted to, I could go into the office at any time, even with knowing that, I was in very close contact with someone and caring for someone that had tested positive for COVID-19. So we also just found out today that the district has management has plans to implement other changes in district policy that adds additional risk to Park District employees. That these implementations would happen January 14th. And with that, they're going to be implemented without having enough time to meet with AFSCME. And I'll just say that some of these changes are changes where Cal OSHA has maybe changed their requirements, but the district's policies in place go further than what the Cal OSHA requires. So the district's basically using these new requirements to actually reduce some of the practices and policies that are in place that are there to help keep the workforce safe. If we weren't in the middle of a surge, I'm not sure AFSCME would necessarily object to all the changes or some of these changes, but I'm just baffled to why in the middle of this surge that management would be considering reducing the practices and policies in place that have helped keep the workforce safe. So what I'm asking is
What's your time,
for
Chris?
I'll be really quick. Well, all I'm asking is for if the policies need to be changed because of laws, then we go ahead and make those changes. But if the district's already going beyond what's required, why don't we just keep those in place until the surge has subsided? Thank you.
Thank you. Just wanted to acknowledge that I do see the hands of Sridhar, Ganesh, and Soleil. You will be after the first four that I called. The next speaker is Ari Suzuki. You have 3 minutes, ma'am.
I think Ari's having technical difficulties.
Okay. So
Can
then
you put
I'll
her
move
later?
to Carmen Gutierrez.
Okay. Hello, board members, President Coffey, and General Manager Landreth. Thank you for taking my comment today. I speak to urge you to close our doors to the public until the current surge in COVID-19 decreases. This is to protect the community as well as employees that work directly with the public. There were 828,000 new cases of COVID in the US on January 3rd, with Alameda County having a 7-day average of 2,056 new cases and community transmission level graded at high. In some of the most vulnerable communities like East Oakland, they had triple the average of COVID-19 cases for many months. According to the CDC, Omicron is likely spreading faster than the original SARS-CoV-2. There are counties in California running out of ICU space, with Alameda being at risk. Some cities are moving to close public facilities until the end of this month. Given our success offering contactless assistance to the public during the last 2 years, it is more than feasible to be able to transition easily and effectively. Please protect the public and our employees while the current surge in COVID-19 persists. And I do want to add that when we first came back to the office, we had very low numbers in COVID-19 within our employee community. And I'm seeing that rise consistently. So thank you.
Thank you, Carmen. Ari, have you resolved your technical issues yet? Okay, we're going to move on. Meadow Darcy, you have 3 minutes, please.
Hi, good afternoon, President Coffey, General Manager Landreth, and members of the board. My name is Meadow Darcy. I'm the Chief Steward of AFSCME Local 2428. I'm here today to talk about the meeting that we had today, as well as the meeting, our labor management meeting we had today, as well as the other person.
Eric, you need to mute yourself. Thank you.
The meeting that we had today with Human Resources and the Risk Department, as well as the meeting that we requested last week with General Manager Landreth. What I seemed to find was a very familiar feeling that I had in the beginning of the pandemic, which was why we had asked for the task force in the first place. We didn't feel that we were getting the information timely, and that there really wasn't anyone in charge, so to speak, of what was going on. And we were getting pointed in multiple directions. Some of the things that I started to see again was that I'm starting to see again is the lack of communication with AFSCME, the lack of communication with our employees, confusing protocols. There's still an access issue with SharePoint. Multiple people are in charge, and when everybody's in charge, no one's in charge. Lack of consistent inspections. The inability to get timely answers on simple questions. I see the risk department is not taking responsibility for safety. I see that the HR manager is being overloaded with this responsibility. I also see that the HR manager, because of this large responsibility, is unable to deal with regular labor issues that should be that person's primary responsibility. I also see a lack of anticipation of things like surges and legislation changes, and lack of available data, and a lack of regular communication with the employees and the labor partners. So I bring this up today because in our meeting today, I was absolutely flabbergasted. I wish you could have seen the face of our business agent, whose mouth was just dropped to the floor. We had asked a simple question. I had literally a text from an employee saying, my son just tested positive for COVID. Can I go in or not? And I said, I don't know the answer, because the policies say one thing, but your emails to Chris say something different. And we could not get a straight answer. We went round and round for about 10 minutes. And the business agent was like, this is ridiculous. Like, we should not have this difficulty. I also commented that if we in this room, the people at the top, the leaders of this, the team that's working on COVID, and the labor leaders can't figure out what to tell an employee, we have a huge problem. We have a huge problem. So I'm really concerned that I'm not going to question people's intentions. I'm not going to question that people aren't working hard. I think they are. I think there's zero communication about what's going on and what work is happening. Employees are scared. They don't have the information. We are asking for the information, and we're getting pointed in all sorts of directions. We really need one person in charge of this situation, one person whose accountability it falls on. And if that, to me, seems like to be the risk department, that's fine, but that reports to the board. So I'm asking you, the board, to please hold the risk department accountable for the safety of the employees at this park district. If we are supposed to meet or exceed OSHA standards, how about we just exceed them for a little bit? How about during this surge, we don't drop it from 10 days to 5 days? Why we would do that right now and why we have to do that, I do not understand. So I'm asking for the board to please hold the department accountable. Thank you.
Thank you. Ari, have you resolved your issues yet? Okay, we're just going to keep moving. We've had I think 5 more people raise their hands. Sridhar Barros, you have 3 minutes, sir.
Thank you. Good afternoon, President Coffey and board members. My name is Sridhar Barros, Vice Mayor, City of San Ramon, a big fan of East Bay Parks. Today, I'm calling regarding no proper communication from East Bay Parks management for denial of nonprofit organization patyatra.org application to conduct a walking event on Iron Horse Trail from San Ramon to Concord, which they have been hosting for the past 7 years successfully. Their application is denied, citing changes in East Bay Parks reservation policies. However, there is no response received for the request made by Patyatra organization, and also I have requested the details on the process and procedures used to change these policies by management. I've also requested a meeting with East Bay Parks management team to clear out any miscommunication that might have been raised in the process of reviewing the application. But so far, not a single response or no email replies, nothing is coming out from the management. So today, I would like to request management to respond our request. Otherwise, there will be always a questions raised about East Bay Parks governance or the transparency and accountability for their actions and policy changes, especially from the community members who are very much our key stakeholders. They are really concerned that they never get any appropriate response from any of their questions asked. So please, it will be great. You can respond to the questions from pathayatra.org, and also it will be great if you can schedule a meeting with them so that you can clear all those miscommunications that are happening. Thank you very much for all your great services in creating our beautiful parks and also preserving our beautiful parks and trails. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Veros. Ganesh Singamani? Yeah, 3 minutes.
No worries, it's Sigamani.
Okay,
Yeah, no worries.
sorry about that.
It's okay, it's completely all right. Hello, EB Parks Board, and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ganesh Sigamani. I am a resident of San Ramon, Contra Costa County, and an office bearer of pathayatra.org, the organization with which Sridhar just mentioned. We have been utilizing the facilities and trails of EB Parks for several years, and thanks for the same. I want to state that I pay East Bay Regional Park $34 as part of my property tax each year. On behalf of pathayatra.org, my question is, we did not get the right responses from EB Parks and permits provided to other organizations. So this begs several questions, especially about the transparency of EB Parks. Can we bring our concerns as an agenda item in the next board meeting? Thanks for all your services, and thanks once again.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker is Soleil Alagapan. You have 3 minutes.
Hello, my name is Solai Algapan. Dear hello, East Bay Park board members and officers. I'm a resident of San Ramon, and I also office bearer of pathayatra.org. We've been conducting this walk on the East Bay Parks INR's trail for the last 7+ years, getting permit, and I'm really appreciate and thank for doing that, because this event is well attended and appreciated by by the participants, and a lot of people join this community walk to enjoy the nature, and we appreciate the East Bay Park for preserving the nature trails and providing us with a great opportunity. This year we applied for the permit to conduct the walk, and it's been denied with some rules. But my disappointment was a similar event was approved to be conducted on the INR's trial. So my question is, why such a discrepancy, and why such a different policy for different organization? I appreciate if that could be taken a look and responded. We sent a lot of emails, but no response, no collaboration from the supervisors. I would like to, request EB Parks to look at that matter and provide us an opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I have 2 people whose names I'm not recognizing. I don't know if you're here for public comment. Jacqueline Jotin or Jutan. Were you here for public comment? And then David Merman. Okay, yes. Uh-oh.
I was going to just chime in to say those are consultants here for the presentation.
All right, thanks, Lisa. All right, then we do not have any more public comments. And I guess Ari's technical difficulties have not been resolved. So if someone can let her know, if she could send us an email, I can make sure that we give that to the directors. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Before going to the consent calendar, I have a question for the general manager. And that is, I assume someone can get back to the Vice Mayor of San Ramon about the permit issue?
Yeah, we're happy to do that. I know that operations has been working on that, and Mr. O'Connor has more information. We'll be happy to reach out directly to him and
Okay.
Respond.
Wonderful. Director Lane.
Yes. Thank you for speaking to us about this. I know that this has been an issue of involving several people for some time. And I'm very pleased that you want to have an event which will be on Iron Horse Trail. But I urge you to realize that it is a public trail and we have to follow certain procedures when we have these walks. So I know Dan Cunning is working on this, and I do hear what you're saying today. So thank you for speaking to us.
I'd also like to ask the general manager if it's not an agenda item, but we could wait until your comments later on the agenda. But I wondered if you'd like to just very briefly fill us in on the status of the COVID policies. I think there's things in the works.
Yeah, thank you, President Coffey. Just briefly, and I am going to put out another communication to all of our district staff later at the end of today. We are navigating the constantly changing regulations from all of the public health agencies, and I'm very pleased to say, for the first time since March of 2020, Cal OSHA, the state public health, and the county are all aligned in terms of the COVID response regulations. Mr. Newey was speaking to the implementation of those. We are working internally on what that means in terms of changes to our existing protocols, and certainly working with our labor partners on how we would implement those. So we will be getting more information out to our employees at the end of the day. But we are, as we all know, in a constantly evolving situation here, and really doing the best we can to follow public health guidance from those agencies. And I'm very pleased to hear that they are finally aligned. So that's what we're working through, and we'll get that communication out today.
That's terrific. Thank you for the feedback. May we move to the consent calendar? All right. Madam Clerk, are there consent items to be pulled and separately discussed?
No, there are not any consent items to be pulled. Several board members had questions, Director Lane and Director Rosario, and I believe all of those questions have been resolved.
Are there any? Let me just ask then with the, I'll get to the one item for council, but do any board members have any remaining questions or comments on specific consent items? Okay, seeing none, I would call.
Colin?
Oh, there you are. Sorry. Dennis?
Yeah, thank you. May I ask a question on item E?
All right. Any other items?
Just to let you know, President Coffey, we do have two comments on item B and item C from looks Chris Newey, and I know Meadow Darcy had a comment, but I didn't know which one it was on, item B or item C.
Okay, Madam Clerk, let's hear from council, and then if you would call those people for those items, that would be appropriate, and then we'll get to Director Waspie's question.
Thanks.
If someone's speaking, we can't hear. Oh, okay. All right, very good.
Um, there's no audio coming out here.
Oh,
We're going to check it out.
Yeah, it's off. It's off. Okay.
Do any members of the board hear me right now?
I
Thumbs
can
up.
hear you. I can hear you.
I can hear you, yes.
Oh, all right. You couldn't hear Rachel, so it might be Council's microphone.
Okay, how is this? Can members of the board hear me?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
all right. We're gonna do this over again.
Well, if members of the public couldn't hear it, then it would defeat the purpose. So I think you need to do it again.
Absolutely, absolutely, doing it over again. Thank you all for your patience. This is an oral report of a summary of the recommendation to appoint a new general counsel. This is to comply with the Brown Act. Proposed for approval on this consent calendar is an employment contract for Lynn Borgall for services as general counsel. This is a 3-year contract to begin on January 26th, 2022, with an annual salary of $246,000. It provides that Ms. Borgall will be a classic CalPERS member. She will begin with 80 hours of administrative leave and 96 hours of vacation leave, and she will receive 80 hours of administrative leave annually and will accrue vacation at a rate of 168 hours per year. Ms. Borgall will receive the same holidays, health, dental, life insurance, and disability benefits afforded other district management employees other than public safety. These terms are all contained in the employment agreement that is part of the staff report today. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. Madam Clerk, 2 members of the public want to address consent items.
Yes, President Coffee. Director, Chris Newey on item B, the appointment of Lynn Borgall as General Counsel of the East Bay Regional Park District and approval of an employment agreement. You have 3 minutes, sir.
All right, thank you. Chris Newey, once again, President of ASME Local 2428, President Coffee, Board of Directors, General Manager Landreth. Earlier this year when the Board of Directors took action that, has this position reporting directly to the Board of Directors, ASME voiced some concern about the reporting structure. We recently met with General Manager Landreth, and we brought up some of these concerns, and there really wasn't, we had some questions and there wasn't really any definitive answers. We really need the Board of Directors or management to really define exactly what the reporting structure is. Without, without a reporting structure that's written exactly, we really are going to struggle holding the management accountable when there's problems with the district. Some of these issues would be, if the general manager normally can appoint the 3rd step grievance hearing officer, and but if the problem derives from risk and the general manager or the appointee overhears these hearings, can they actually direct the other departments that they don't oversee? It gets into like how do we resolve problems when there's this structure that kind of has kind of a multi-tiered structure. So we really need that defined, and just so we can kind of continue with the business of representing the employees of the East Bay Regional Park District. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Chris. And you also had a comment on item C, the authorization to extend East Bay Regional Park District's 2021 COVID-19 supplemental paid sick leave policy through March 25th, 2022.
Thank you, Yolanda.
3 minutes.
So on this item, we're advocating for not only an extension of the hours that were in place at the end of last year, but a replenishment of the balance of those hours. Many of these employees that have either run low or run out of the hours did so on doing the right thing. They either had symptoms and stayed home from work to try to protect their coworkers, or they had symptoms and tested positive and stayed home. And this was a great tool to incentivize trying to keep everyone safe. And we are at the point where there's employees that are out of hours. I'm myself, I had to use 30 hours near the end of last year because of coming down with symptoms that were very similar to the listed COVID symptoms. And I really didn't want to risk my coworkers not only catching what I had while I waited to test. Test results sometimes take 2 to 3 days to come back. But just to keep my coworkers safe in general. And now I'm sitting here at home with symptoms once again, with a son that's tested positive for COVID. So there's a likely chance I may need to use hours, and how many of those hours I need, I don't know if my balance will, if renewed, would even cover what I have. So here I am trying to do the right thing and trying to keep my coworkers safe. And it's, once again, replenishing it would really just incentivize everyone doing the right thing and keep helping everyone stay safe. So thank you for your time. And I hope you do vote to replenish rather than just extend.
Thank you, Chris. Meadow, were you speaking on this item?
No, there was a little confusion on the agenda. There was item number 1, which is the resolution of the proclamation. I don't know what item that is, but it says 1A, but then there's another 1A. So I wanted to speak on the proclamation.
So, okay. We already passed that on the agenda, President Coffey.
Okay.
Yeah, Meadow, we voted on it already.
Sorry, I was here. I didn't even notice. I had asked to speak on that item, but I think it got mistakenly moved to a different 1A because the agenda was kind of mixed up, but that's fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
Feel free to send us a note. All right, and Director Waspy had a question or comment on an item?
Yes, my question would be, or a comment, it's regards to resolution to support Senate Bill 2960 and House Bill 5533, which is the Reducing Waste in National Parks Act. And I fully support that, and I'm glad we're looking to support that. The legislation would reinstate the Obama administration's guidelines banning the sale of single-use plastic water bottles in national park facilities. And this bill goes on to explain how in many national parks, the reduction in plastic waste was incredible when they stopped selling bottles. So as much as I'm very much in support of this, I hope the regional park district will follow suit and ban the sale of plastic water bottles and even plastic beverage containers in our parks and through our concessionaires. And that's just a statement, and I hope we can follow through on that one.
Thank you, Director. Any further questions or comments on consent items? Director Corbett.
If there's no other questions or comments, I'm happy to make the motion to move forward.
All right, no item has been pulled for a separate vote, so the motion would be to approve the entire consent calendar. Thank you, Ellen.
So I'll make that motion.
Second. Director Rosario. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes, President Coffee, Director Wieskamp,
Aye.
Director Wasby,
Aye.
Director Lane. Aye. Director Eccles,
Aye.
Director Corbett,
Aye.
Director Rosario. Aye. And President Coffee.
Aye.
Consent calendar is approved.
All right, next item is 3 from the Executive and Legislative Division, East Bay Regional Park District, November Scientific Voter Survey. Who would that be? Lisa?
Mr. Feeler, I believe, is going to kick us off here.
All right.
Yeah, thank you, Director or President Coffee. Eric Feeler, Chief of Government and Legislative Affairs. Here to introduce the item. We did a survey of 600 likely voters, November 2022 likely voters, back in November of last year. We used Lake Research Partners, and our consultants are here today. They were already introduced, David Merriman and Jacqueline Juten, who answer questions at the end of the presentation. And the survey, as it went out, we did it in 3 languages. It's the first time the Park District has ever contemplated doing a survey with Mandarin, so we were pleased to see that. And with that, I would like to turn it over to our management analyst in the Government Affairs Department, Lisa Baldinger, for the presentation of the results, and then we'll have a little bit of a discussion afterwards, hopefully. Lisa.
Thank you, Eric. President Coffee, members of the board, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we should have a PowerPoint up. So this is a presentation on the November 2021 voter survey. As the board of directors is well aware, the government affairs team has the role of working to administer 2 voter surveys annually. And so this was our 2nd voter survey of the 2021 calendar year. Eric went over the details of how the survey was conducted. It's phone and text to online, so both could be done verbally as well as in written form, provided in 3 languages of 600 likely November 2022 voters. So to begin and get a baseline of who we were speaking with, we do weight the survey to represent the geographic demographics of the likely voters. So 58% of those who took this survey live in Alameda and 42% in Contra Costa. We also ask if folks have heard of the East Bay Regional Park District, and this is on name alone, not providing any additional details. And so from name alone, 87% of those that were surveyed are aware of the East Bay Regional Park District. And so that name recognition is incredibly valuable to our public affairs department and just in general conversations. But then knowing that some folks to us were Tilden or were Black Diamond Mines, we provide a more robust background on the Park District for those being surveyed. And then we ask if those members of the public find us to be a valuable public resource. I'm proud to share that in the past 5 years, as you'll see in your budget book, the Park District has been in the mid to high 90s in terms of public belief that we are a valuable public resource. So that's very positive of the work of everyone here. Before speaking about any sort of new funding at all, we ask about where our public would like to see funding invested back into their communities. Consistently in recent years, managing flammable vegetation to reduce wildfire risk has come up to the top. As you can see on the screen before you, this comes up higher than responding to fire. So our public is very much with us in wanting to do that proactive wildfire mitigation, which is a testament to our fire department, stewardship department, and operations teamwork. Also very close to our mission is the protection of natural habitat for healthy and resilient wildlife, and that is the second from the top in terms of priorities of our public. That's closely followed by responding to and making sure we have the correct equipment to respond to wildfire. Expanding and maintaining park and trails for community physical and mental health is a high priority of our public. In complement, we have the maintaining our visitor use facilities. So this includes restrooms, parks and trails to ensure that they're welcoming, as well as universally accessible with ADA improvements. And this was our first time asking specifically about universal accessibility in a recent survey. So it was great to see that is a priority of our public and aligns with the work that our MAST and other teams are doing. We have improved water quality of urban creeks through trail maintenance and erosion management, consistently coming up to the top, as well as investing in the improvement of the lake health in the district. We did have some additional questions that didn't rise to this top list that include sea level rise mitigation, access for tribal communities and others. Though they were sort of all very high priorities, these were the highest. So we were glad to see our public supports the work that we're doing in alignment with our mission and vision. Then we ask about new additional funding. So the first question that we asked our public is a $2 per month. In recent surveys, the board has seen us asking about $1 per month district-wide. So this time we started with $2. So this would be $24 per parcel per year. And it would raise about 18.5 million annually for the Park District. And with this question asked, as well as the potential deliverables in alignment with the areas the public would like to see investments made, we had 70% district-wide support for a $2 per month per parcel tax. And then this is what it sort of looks like in terms of the yes and no district-wide. As you can see, pretty consistent support with previous measures. We then asked about a different mechanism, one that staff is in the very early stages of exploring the administrative lift of what it would be, but it's a half-cent tax per square foot. This is one that we learned of through our revenue strategy consultant, TBWBH, and we also understand Marin Fire District was able to implement it in 2020. And so asking about a half-cent tax per square foot, this could range on impact since it's based off of the square foot feature, but for a 2,000 square foot home, that would be about $10 per year. So compared to the $24 on the previous slide. This also received a 70% yes district-wide, and it has the potential to raise up to $50 million for the Park District on an annual basis. Again, both of these are really focused on that parcel tax that could be used for supporting staff as well as ongoing maintenance needs. And then this is what it sort of looks like on a high level in terms of that district-wide support. So when we look back on our recent surveys, so the spring of 2018 was our first survey in a while looking at the whole of the district for voter support. We were building up to Measure FF in 2018. So then when we took it to a bird's eye view, as you can see, we've consistently been polling in the 70s since 2018 on our regular surveys. One difference just to note looking at this longitudinal graph is that in this specific survey, we did not ask about $1 per month. And so it's a $2 per month that's reflected on the screen in front of you. We then asked some messages just around framing the Park District's work in general, but also relative to any future funding mechanism. So the first positive message was on climate. And so we share about the work that we're doing for sea level rise, mitigating toxic algae blooms, prolonged drought. And when we share these messages around climate, 70% of those who receive them feel convinced to continue to support the Park District, which is really a good testament. We also ask about public access. And so this is where we're really focusing on potentially opening new parklands, increasing access, understanding the benefits for psychological and physical health. And 75% of those who heard this message found it to be a convincing reason to support the Park District. In complement, access is of course complemented with maintenance. And so we share that we are an 87-year-old agency. A lot of our facilities were built in the 1930s. Thanks to our VFA database, we were able to estimate over $89 million worth of deferred maintenance that needs to be managed on our parks and trails for our current and future generations. And 77% of those who heard this found it convincing. And then lastly is a consistent message that rises to the top around all of the good work our agency does for wildfire. So hearing a little bit about the Park District's work to manage resources for resiliency, as well as reestablishing fire-tolerant species, 83% of those who heard this argument found it convincing. We also did share some negative messages, and after hearing both those positive as well as negative messages around the Park District, the support was consistent. So even after the messages, there wasn't a great increase. It was simply those who were maybe leaning yes became a little bit stronger in their yes, and those who leaned no were a little bit stronger in their no. So for $2 per month or $24 per year per parcel, we had a consistent 70% yes district-wide. So as you can see, it just shifted people and made them feel a little bit more strongly in where they were leaning. A very similar case for our half-cent tax per square foot. It shifted the overall to 69%, but again, where we saw the shifts was that those who leaned got a little stronger in whatever direction. And so just lastly, we'll close out this presentation with a high-level look at demographics, and then I'll pass it over to our consultants at Lake Research Partners to share a little bit more about what they saw in the details of the crosstabs. But so we ask about renting or owning a home, the self-identified gender of respondents. And again, we use these to make sure that we're aligning the data with weighting to the community of the East Bay. And then lastly, the self-identified racial or ethnic group of respondents. Oh, and age. Okay. And with that, I'll go ahead and stop sharing my screen and see if Eric has any closing remarks, and then hand it over to David and Jacqueline.
Just wanted to say that, well, thank you, Lisa, for the presentation, and David and Jacqueline for the research. I think what it told us is we have more research to do. The square foot parcel tax is something we really want to examine a little more deeply to really understand how it's implemented and what is a reasonable way to go about it. So we are going to be, as Lisa said, speaking with Marin Fire and some other consultants to really try to better understand that mechanism. So at this time, we've got some work to do. So with that, I would invite David or Jacqueline to make a few observations, and then we'd be happy to take questions if the board has some. David?
Sure, yeah, I can jump in, and this is very much our work of the team here at Lake Research Partners in consultation with Lisa and Eric and their valuable input in designing the research, and also our partners at TBWB who are planning on strategy and communications. And I would say one clarification in terms of the universe, you saw those demographics, that's the demographics of the likely voters in the East Bay. So it's not the entire population, but those who are registered and likely to vote in the next election, because that's, of course, the relevant universe for thinking about whether to pass a ballot measure. And that's different from slightly some of the earlier surveys where we looked at the whole community of users or the whole community of residents in the East Bay. And therefore, those demographics skew a little bit older and more educated and so on, as voters tend to do. So just noting that in terms of the representation of the survey, but we did analyze that data closely as Lisa and Eric indicated, and found, I would say, as Eric said, work to do in the sense that it's important to communicate, and in order to pass a measure that would require a 2/3 threshold, it will be important for voters to hear those messages. They do respond very positively, as you saw in those numbers, to the messages. That fire prevention is particularly strong, but the others also quite good. But it is important to communicate those. It will be important for voters to hear what the district is doing and the value of the investment in order to maintain and strengthen that yes vote, if that's how you go forward. And I would say that it's in a pretty good position to pass. It is not a slam dunk. It's not automatic. When you need 2/3, being at 70 means you have a little bit of margin, but not a lot. We did test some negative messages, and we're looking at, that's to just make sure that it would hold up, that support would hold up if there were people criticizing the district or raising concerns about the cost. So, and that's just to give as realistic a picture as we can about how the chances for passage. But it does appear that there is not a whole lot of sensitivity on the mechanism, on the funding mechanism. As you noted, it's quite similar, that around 70% yes. And if you look underneath at the data, we did see sort of what we would call the expected patterns of support, in that, voters who are registered Democrats tend to be more supportive than Republicans. Younger voters, a bit more supportive than older ones. Renters, a little bit more supportive than homeowners. pretty strong support across racial and ethnic groups and across the region, although it is definitely stronger on the sort of bay side of the hills geographically. And it's not surprisingly a little bit more mixed east of the hills, because that is generally more conservative, more tax sensitive part of the district. But by and large, none of those were surprising, and they're consistent with data we've seen in earlier surveys in the area. So those would be our main observations, but happy to answer any questions.
All right, let's go to the board for any comments or questions. Director Lane.
Yeah, I have a future question. So evidently, all our voters are going to receive absentee ballots from now on. And I am wondering two things. One, if you think that will make a difference in terms of most likely voters. And then second, if that will affect the costs of a campaign such as we're talking about.
I think the short answer, this is David, and there may be others who have thoughts on this as well, but I would say we are aware of that and built it into our assumptions about the turnout of likely voters, that the state was probably going to mail out ballots to everyone again, and then that decision was confirmed. So that's built into our assumptions about the likely electorate, that it would be a relatively high turnout for that reason, that it'll be easier to vote as it was in 2020. And that's assumed, but it does mean, yes, it's a larger universe. So I turn to others to consider what that means for communications and possibly the expense of a campaign.
Any other questions? Director Rosario.
Yeah, have in the universe that had in the survey, are there any large landowners in that universe?
Well, yes, to the extent that they are in the universe of likely voters, but we didn't break that out as a unit for analysis, because that would be a very small portion of the population. It wouldn't be large enough to analyze, but there are probably a few in the sample. But all we asked is whether they were homeowners or renters. We did not ask specifically about the size of their properties.
Yeah, I bring it up because Director Wasby brought it up in legislative committee about if there's going to be any opponents to the square footage rate, then it would probably most likely come from those larger landowners. So I'm just curious.
Director Rosario, just to clarify, it would have to be land that had been developed. So it does not apply to agricultural land.
That's important. Thank you.
Director Wasby.
Yeah, thank you. David, thank you. And Jacqueline, thank you. This is the second time I've heard this presentation. I love the way you guys do your methodology, and I just love hearing how people react to these types of things. And I'll get back onto Rosario, but could you, one more time, could you define likely voters?
It's not a simple answer to that question, because it's a turnout model, and it's based on the vote history. So if you have voted in a similar previous election, such as November of 2018, that's the most likely to turn out in November of 2022. So those folks are almost all in the turnout model. But we do include some of the newer registrants who maybe weren't around in 2018 or got more interested in voting since then. So we include some, but not all of the voters who have new registrants and turned out possibly just in 2020. And we account for the fact, as mentioned, that the state has changed its voting procedures, and more, people will everyone's getting a ballot. So the bottom line is you are more likely to show up in the sample if you are a voter with a vote history who has turned out before, but you also have some chance of appearing in the sample if you are just a registered voter or registered recently. If someone has been registered and not voted, in elections that they've had an opportunity to vote in, then they usually don't show up in the sample. That's not who appears in the likely voter model.
All right. Well, so great. But I agree with Director Rosario in that, and when we heard this before, I mean, I personally think that a half-cent sales tax is fairer than a parcel tax but I'm interested, and I don't know how you would find it out, but I think we really need to find it out and I think you mentioned that another county or city had used the half-cent sales tax model and present it for the voters. I'm wondering if we can look at people, because as our budget document that we've been going through in the last couple of months said, I mean, if you look at the biggest taxpayers in Alameda County, the biggest taxpayer is Tesla Motors, and it's a phenomenal amount of assessed valuation they have. And in Contra Costa County, it's I think Chevron, and they've got a tremendous amount of assessed valuation. And if we're going to do a half-cent sales tax, which if we use the example of a 2,000 square foot home, I think everybody buys that except for Mr. Musk and whoever runs Chevron. I think you immediately bring on opposition at that point, because that's some real money. So I don't know how you, I don't think you could poll for that, but I think we need to look at some history and see how these things go. And if there's an example of the half-cent sales tax, has there been any major opposition? Because like you've said, and it is so true, 66.7% threshold is pretty high threshold.
Thank you,
But I look forward to it.
Thank you, Director Waspy. And just commenting back to let you know that staff very much hears you. One of the next steps for us is also working with our financial consultant, NBS, who did the very preliminary estimates that I was able to share with you all today. We'd, of course, go back to them and dive in a little bit deeper if it's at interest of the board to see, can we get answers to the questions that you're asking?
Great. Thank you.
Director Corbett or Eccles? Director Eccles?
Yeah, I just had a question. Oh, first of all, thank you very much. Very interesting data, and it looks very looks good. Although I certainly hear what you're saying. If you start at 70%, you have to keep it at least above 66%, and anything can happen. But what my question is, so can you just talk a little bit more about how you contacted the people who you identified in your sample? I know I understand how you created the sample, but how did you actually reach out and get them to participate?
Sure. This is we're using now the most accurate way to sample for an election, which all the high quality pollsters are using for elections now, which is a hybrid of a live phone interview. So someone could be called on either their cell and some landlines as well, but mostly cells now, and offer a chance to participate in the survey, or if they prefer, they can also do an online version that they access through a text message, but it's all based on this sample of likely voters from the voter file, and then it's their preference for how they want to respond. And then by doing both of those methods, we're able to get better response rates from both older and younger voters and across the spectrum in the different communities. And of course, as noted, we did the 3 languages this time with English, Spanish, and Mandarin. But of course, response rates are lower to all kinds of surveys than they were historically. And in order to account for that, we make sure that we stratify and control the sample so that it's demographically representative. And if somebody is unreachable or doesn't want to do the survey, that they are substituted with a demographically and every other way similar respondent, ideally from the same sort of geographic area, and then representing similar mix of characteristics on the voter file, so that those known factors are held consistent, and we have still an accurate sample of in this case the several hundred voters that are on the file, so it's representative, and within we can apply the margin of error and know that it's an accurate sample. And that's consistent practice that we're continuing to do across everywhere that we're polling.
Yeah, thank you. That's very helpful. So I was just curious, when you call them, do you say that it's a survey on the Park District? And if so, does that does that create any bias? Like, I mean, if someone called me, I would be likely to answer a survey on the park district, but not.
We don't. We just say it's a survey on current issues in your community.
I see.
They get it. They get an idea pretty quickly as they go through it, what it's about. And we do keep track of people who terminate in the middle. Most people who don't do it refuse at the beginning, but some do terminate in the middle. And if there's any skew or bias in that, we then correct for that to make sure that we've got still the representative sample all the way through.
Great, thank you.
Director Corbett?
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. Appreciate it. It would be nice next time we have a presentation about this that we have additional documents to read prior to the actual board meeting. I just wanted to point that out because we didn't really have much to read in advance, at least with the packet for this meeting. When will we at some point do more work to figure out what the specific issues we need funding for? Obviously, we do know that, but I'm just very concerned about making sure, obviously we know that potential fighting fires and dealing with that issue is always something we should make sure we have the planning and the funding for. And I also want to make sure that we address the issue of the rise of shoreline and how that all is going to impact us and impact our land and the kind of funding we need to address those issues. When do we get there?
So I can jump in on that. And it's a great question, Director Corbett. Oh, lots of that going. And this has been something that there's been a lot of discussion amongst the staff around this, which is, we have to not allow the money to necessarily dictate our work. It should be the other way around, and that we have our strategic plan and then we plug our potential revenues into that. So we are working right now on looking at both our longer term capital plan, so developing a really robust CIP, capital improvement program, and then also looking at our longer term staffing needs and staffing models to answer both those questions that you raised, which is, Eric mentioned, we have a lot of work to do before we would want to recommend that you go to the voters to put a measure in front of them. And that's a lot of the work that we need to do, which is to say exactly what would we be raising this money for, and really having a much more robust long-term plan. We all know we need money. I've yet to meet a public agency that says that it has enough revenues to do all the things it wants to do. I don't think that's the question. I think the question is how are we going to prioritize, and what would we really be putting in front of the voters on what they'd be funding? So that is a lot of the work that we've started, but really a lot of 2022 focus from the executive team that we'd be bringing to the board as well.
Okay. And when do we think that will happen?
We have I don't have a timeline on exactly when it would come to you. I just want to say that we have started those conversations internally. And my hope is that in your next budget process, you would have a lot more of that information handy to make those decisions.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any further board member comment or questions? Mine have been answered. No, any public comment?
No, President Coffey.
No public comment. So we are ready to move on. The next item is number 4 under acquisition, stewardship, and development. Would that be Christina Kelchner?
Thank you, Director Coffey. Christina Kelchner, Assistant General Manager of Acquisition, Stewardship, and Development. And this presentation will actually be given by Lisa Gorgian, who's going to give us an introduction, our Design and Construction Chief, and as well as Ren Bates, our Capital Program Manager. So I will turn it over to Lisa Gorgian.
Thank you.
Oh, good afternoon. President Coffey and members of the board, thank you, Christina, for that introduction. Let's let's see, Ren, can you do the next slide? Great. So I just wanted to start out, give a little background. As the board is aware, lots of work has been going on at Coyote Hills. This past August, the seminal Dumbarton Quarry Campground was just opened, and work continues to advance the former Patterson Ranch project to improve public access and restoration. So this is the third project that we've been working on within the park, and so I wanted to talk a little bit more about that. Next slide. Great. So as you can see, this project is really a project within a project, and it's been really integrally tied to the development of the campground. The two projects, they share grading, utility connections, site access, but unlike the campground that was built by Pacific States and Dumbarton Quarry Associates that was built and turned over to the district, the service yard has been managed by the Park District throughout its entirety. So the project team has been working really collaboratively with the Dumbarton Quarry project team, Dumbarton Quarry and Associates team, to advance this project, as it's located like literally within the campground site. So the project's been led by the district's architect, Jim Devlin, along with park operations, Matt McDonald, Jeff Manley, Dave Vance, and Steve Castile, and others, but just want to make sure to acknowledge them. And then finally, as Ren will highlight, this project really is significant as the architectural drawings for this facility will serve as a prototype standard as the district develops future service yards, such as the forthcoming project at Point Pinole. It also is significant as it meets the district's performance goal of achieving a workforce of excellence by providing a facility that is intentionally designed as a service yard facility. So we're really excited about that. And really, we think this will go a long way to support the district staff as they perform their work and, of course, the mission of the district. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ren to continue to walk us through.
Thank you, Lisa. Afternoon, board members. Ren Bates, Capital Program Manager. And as Lisa has stated, recently the quarry adjacent to Coyote Hills, we all know, has been converted to a campground facility. The existing Coyote Hills service yard is basically inadequate to provide services for the campground. The existing service yard is near the visitor center. And as you can see from this map, the visitor center is quite away from the Dumbarton Quarry campground. So the action before you is to award a construction contract to build a new service yard. And the new service yard will serve both Coyote Hills and the Dumbarton Quarry campground. The recommendation before the board is to authorize award of construction contract with Bueller Commercial, to amend the contract with Interactive Resources, who are our architectural consultants that have helped develop contract drawings, and authorize direct payments for utilities and associated agreements for the developed service yard project at Coyote Hills. This image actually shows the building pad and where the service yard will be on the ground. So this has been built in conjunction with the campground, and so we have a pad and a building area, so that most of that site work was done. So what is a service yard? Service yard, for clarity, is a site-specific facility. So it's basically meant for a park or an aggregation of parks for the office, workshop space, and storage for the maintenance of ongoing park operations for that specific site. This is in contrast to a corporation yard. The corporation yard is a district-wide facility, which is provides as a hub for maintenance of the fleet vehicles, roads and trails equipment, and things of that nature. So it's a much larger facility and has different, but anyways, there's three. There's one at Pacheco, there's one in Tilden, and there's one at Lake Chabot. So that's the difference between a service yard. The images you see on this slide, this is the actual site plan for the service yard at Coyote Hills and Dumbarton Quarry. This is the building itself. You'll have, it'll all be fenced in, so it has a fence around it. This structure here is a trash, what the district calls a trash gondola. It allows for trucks to come up and be above the dumpsters that are here. You can imagine a campground generates a lot of recyclables, trash, other kind of waste and other. So this allows staff to come up and not have to hoist and throw things up into a dumpster. They can approach from above. So this is a major part of this site in the service yard. There will also be a vehicle and equipment wash station. There will be a future diesel tank. There'll be electric charging stations for staff and fleet vehicles, not for staff, but for fleet vehicles. And there'll be enough parking on site for the staff and the required equipment for the site. This building is a rendering of what our service yard will be. And as Lisa alluded or mentioned in the earlier, we design and construction work closely with operations to come up with a standardized service yard. We have many, as everyone knows, we have lots of parks that need to be maintained. And so the goal was to come up with a design that could be utilized throughout. Some parks probably won't require a facility quite this size, but this was, as I said, the design and construction worked with operations to suss out the needs, requirements for both workshop space and office space. And this was how we just what we landed on. It's a metal extruded building, so it's economically it provides everything in one building. So we basically didn't have to build two things. It's extruded and it's prefabricated so that construction is relatively easy as opposed to a custom one-off building for every site. The other thing to note is that the other action before the board is to amend interactive resources. So in this project, what we're using as a prototype, we will use the same building at Point Knoll. And so this is we're seeing this as an opportunity to build this service yard, get feedback in the real time, which interactive resources were amending their contract to help with construction administration, and then take lessons learned from the construction of this building to apply to our Point Knoll drawings. And so that when we can use these drawings as a basis, make changes based on real life experience from building, and then put that project out to build shortly after this one's complete. And again, it's in the name of efficiency and trying to learn from building something. The Park District put out bids for this project, and we advertised in all of the builders exchanges and in the paper. We received bids and we got 3 responsive bids. Those bids are here before you. Our engineer's estimate was 3.2, and as you can see, our lowest bid and who we're seeking to award contract to is Bueller, and they came in 3.4. Here's our funding. We have currently adequate funding in the project budget to both award the contract and amend the consulting services contract with Interactive Resources. And then we leave some money in for utilities and permits. Like as I said earlier, this pad has been built and utilities have been brought in, but we like to have those contingencies available, and we seek your approval now for that if that ever comes up. So pending award of construction today at this board meeting, which we are asking for, building, we would have to execute contracts and wait for, we'd hope to anticipate building in March of this year, and construction will take 12 months. So we will be done with the service yard hopefully in March of 2023. I'm going to scroll back up to the recommendation. And so again, the recommendation is to authorize a construction contract, amend a contract with Interactive Resources, and authorize direct payments. With that, I will stop sharing screen and be happy to field any questions.
Questions from the board? Director Ling.
Thank you very much. I know we are going to need this new service yard very soon. And so I'm assuming it's serving all of Coyote Hills. Yes?
That's correct.
Yeah. And we have in the past done an awful lot of adaptive locations for our staff. often former Nike buildings and places which we just make do. So I'm pleased to see the thought that has gone into this. And so I have a couple of questions. Have we had any, there's going to be an area for staff naturally in here. And I know as we've looked at possible new visitor centers, we talked both about naturalist and recreation staff. Here, this is operations staff. Do we have any have we had any discussions about expanding it beyond operations staff?
I'll go ahead, Lisa.
Well, yeah, we can tag team this. So Lisa Gorton, Chief of Design and Construction. The design for this was for park operations. Previously, you might recall Jim and Ren also looked at a program for updating the visitor center at Coyote Hills. And so that's really where the focus for the interp and recreation staff for accommodating for the work that they deliver.
Yeah, and I'll amend Lisa's answer by just saying that that was specifically for this site, but programmatically in terms of looking at this service yard and its facilities, it's primarily for operations. It doesn't, the office space was slated basically for the supervisor and the staff that work there. There's not a lot of room for expansion, and we tried to minimize the footprint of the building itself. And so programmatically, it's more of an operational facility.
Okay, and did you want to add to that, Jim?
Director Lane, yeah, I just want to agree with what Lisa, sorry about that, that is very close. What Ren and Lisa just said, this facility is specific to park operations. And of course, at Coyote Hills, we have a separate visitor center, which houses our interpretive staff. And that also is a future project to do some renovations at that location also. But yeah, these service yards are primarily for park operations. That's the intention. And in the parks where we have a visitor center, we have a separate facility for those staff also. And I just, if you will indulge me, President Coffey, I just want to say thank you to Ren and Lisa and Jim Devlin and the operations team. This has been a long time coming. You may recall this was, I think, was a discussion we had at a board workshop in 2016. And we talked about our priorities about service yards. And at the top of the list, of course, was finishing Del Val, which we are almost complete with. Next was this Dumbarton Quarry, and then, of course, this Point Pinole. So we're very excited about this. It's been a long time coming, but I think there's some great work done. So I just want to say thanks to Jim Devlin and the rest of the team.
Okay, thank you. And I did, I didn't say anything probably when we were talking about service yards in 2016, but and I'm not expecting the building to be beautiful. But I always like things that, have the leaf in a prominent place and are as aesthetically pleasing as we can manage. And this is a very a utilitarian building, if I understand. Are there some plans to perhaps soften it with some trees or vegetation? Has that been something that's been discussed with regard to this building?
I will field that. We currently don't have a lot of landscaping out there. The site was decided to try to minimize its visual intrusion into the campground. So that's why it's sort of placed around the corner. It's more of on the access to where trucks are taking in. But to specifically answer your question, there isn't a lot of landscaping out there around the building. That we don't have a lot of space for that. Usually landscaping needs a little bit of a buffer, and we were constrained on space. So that isn't part here, but but the siting of the building itself was to try to minimize its visual impact on the campus.
Okay, well, I would just hope that you might have some landscape people take a look at it. Not something elaborate, but something live that would soften it a little bit. I'm just suggesting that, so. Oh, Jim.
And Director Lane, those are great questions, and I appreciate your thoughts. And that's something I think that park staff could take on, in the years ahead to add that in as annual projects to do that. So it's a great suggestion, and absolutely we would look to do that in the future.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. And then my final one is that this is generally at the south end of the campground. And as you know, I'm concerned about how campers are going to get to the Bay Trail. So is this just out of the whole, and the location for this completely out of the way of where the trail will eventually go, or would you just share that with me?
Yeah, I'll do my best here. So the trail is closer to the very entrance road, the very gate at the entrance. We still need to work on developing a safe crossing there, because that is also the road that the trucks use for the quarry that's still functioning on site. So we have some work to do there to make that crossing safe. So I know that ASD staff are well aware of that, and we will be working on that in the future, but it's not tied into the service yard at all. It's a little bit outside the footprint.
Any other board members? Director Rosario.
This is the location there for the service yard is it's really exposed, and I think it would be ideal to think about putting it solar on that location in the future, or maybe even now. But I think it's something that we should be taking advantage of in locations that make sense. And to me, this makes sense just because of the location, and it's so open, gets a lot of sunlight, and then with the advent of the possibility of increased, I should say more electric vehicles, we should make sure our electrical facilities are going to be expandable as needed. So so that's my only thing, is that I think we should consider putting solar in there as soon as, whenever it feels the right time. So leave that open for you folks to figure it out, but it would be ideal. Thank you. And I also can't wait for Pompano service. They've been waiting so long. So thank you.
Director Wieskamp. You're muted, Ann.
I was coughing. I never thought I would get so excited about a utilitarian building. But the staff at Coyote Hills, we've all seen what they put up with. And they never really griped about it to me, but you just looked at it, you knew that they needed something much better. And it's been so exciting to see everything happening at Coyote Hills, but finally, this is coming into fruition. It's designed for its purpose, and there's nothing wrong with being utilitarian. I do agree, trees would be an asset. And I can say this because I talked to Chris Lyle, and one of the things he's done out at Vasco is add trees. It really helps the site, and I think it will help soften the image, and it will just be nice for the staff to have something green right outside. But I can tell you that if there's any group that's thrilled, it's all of those people who have been working at Coyote Hills for years. And this is just one more block of making that a great, successful park area. And Ren, Lisa, you all deserve a lot of credit for getting it to this point. So thank you very much. I'm looking forward to seeing it get it started. I might even come out and watch you dig a shovel to get it going on. But it's great. And it's going to serve a purpose all throughout the district. And that's pretty extraordinary. So thank you.
Any other board? Yes, Director Waspy.
I just wanted to say thanks, Ren and staff and everybody that's done this. I think it's, we talked about this for a long time, having a template for service buildings and service yards. I look forward to it. I'm encouraged by the electric vehicles charging stations, and I hope that was for staff parking stations. I'm interested in the 500 gallons on the diesel tank. I know that we do that, and I know it's a very sophisticated operation where you have to build, you have to contain it. It's in case there's a spill. I'm wondering if there's going to be a regular gas tank adjacent, or just the diesel. I'd obviously prefer electric, but I don't know if we can get away from it totally. I guess that's in a form of a question, but also in my last comment is I love the fact that we're replacing the outdated existing service yard. And a piece of history, that was an old classroom from Frick Junior High, but it wasn't $3.4 million. It was $1. And then it took a little change to build it up. But those were the good old days. And that's still a very nice building. I've been in there a while ago. I hope we're not going to tear that building apart, are we? Or can we reuse that building? I'm sure staff at Coyote Hills can use it.
There are no intentions to tear it down currently. I think if the visitor center gets reworked, that whole site will get redone, and that would mean if it's mobile, we could look at it. But like that, currently we just have a concept plan for the visitor center, so it's a little ways an offing, but so the building will remain there currently.
Director Waspy, park staff, they're pack rats. So they're never going to give anything up. They're going to keep everything until somebody takes it away from them. So it's not going anywhere.
That's so true.
I remember reading an oral history, I think it was Norm Kidder, who said that at one point they did have an old Nike building there that they had used for operations, and they took it down and the staff cried. So we know they like to keep their building space.
All right. Further board comment or question? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, do we have any public comment requests?
Copy.
All right, then we have a resolution with the presented recommendations regarding developing the service yard project at Coyote Hills. Director Wieskamp, would you like to make that motion?
Absolutely. I would like to authorize awarding of a construction contract with Bueller Commercial Construction, amending a consulting services contract with Interactive Resources Incorporated, and authorize payment of permit and utility connection fees for developing the service yard project, Coyote Hills Regional Park.
Second.
Director Waspy, second. Madam Clerk, could you call the roll, please?
Yes, President Coffey. Director Lane.
Aye.
Director Eccles.
Aye.
Director Corbett.
Aye.
Director Waspy.
Aye.
Director Wieskamp.
Aye.
Director Rosario. Aye. And President Coffey.
Aye.
Item is unanimously approved.
Okay, item B, AGM Kelchner.
Let me turn this on. Can you hear me better now? Let me start over. All the
Oh my gosh.
technology. Assistant General Manager Kelchner of Acquisition Stewardship and Development. This next item is acquisition of approximately 80 acres out east of Vasco Road. We are excited about this acquisition as an opportunity to continue to expand the Park District's acquisitions out in this area. It is a partnership with the Eastern Contra Costa County Habitat Conservancy, our good partners, the Conservancy, led by Executive Director Abby Fateman. So we have been working closely with the Conservancy on this acquisition. We're pleased to bring it before you today. It does expand, it will expand the Byron Vernal Pools Regional Preserve and provide important grassland habitat protection. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Mike Reeves. Thanks.
Well, good afternoon, President Coffey, members of the board. Mike Reeves, Chief of Land Acquisition. Can I first get a confirmation that you are indeed hearing my voice?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, check the first box. The 80-acre Pew Trust property is located in southeast Contra Costa County. It's adjacent to Byron Vernal Pools Regional Preserve. And this first image is of the former ranch compound at the lower elevation of the property. We're looking south, and there's a total of, you'll see 7 wind turbines in the hillsides above. The 5 on the left are on the subject property, and the 2 on the right are on adjacent Park District lands as part of the Byron Vernal Pools. So here's a vicinity map. You see Vasco Road there, Los Vaqueros Reservoir. The site is very close to the Contra Costa Alameda County boundary. The portion of our Byron Vernal Pools Preserve that is south and east of Vasco Road that you see there, that includes the footprint of the Buena Vista Energy Wind Farm, which is a total of 38 wind turbines, again, 5 of which are located on the subject property. The other 31 of which are located on Park District lands, and that figures into one of the considerations for this acquisition. Zooming in, you get a clear image there of the network of the wind turbines and the roads that service them. The former ranch compound there is in the northwestern corner of the property. And the county boundary, you see that kind of on a diagonal slant on the lower right of the map. Also mentioned that the property to the right or to the east of the subject property, where the site bubble is, that is another 80-acre property, private property. The Park District recently appealed Contra Costa County Planning Commission's decision in November of last year that directed county staff to continue processing the application and environmental review for a proposed solar power generation facility on that adjacent site. So that's just something to make note of. We're going to have a series of photos here to get a better feel for the property. These photos were taken very recently when things, the rain had really greened things up. So some nice images today to share with you. This is looking southwesterly at the property. Again, the ranch compound is in the foreground there. The property boundary between the subject property and our parklands is right about here. Actually, all 5 of those turbines are on Park District land. When we went into contract on this property last May, there was a considerable amount of debris and derelict structures on the property, sheds and the sort. And also there was a cabin that was deteriorated state and had been unoccupied for some time. One of the terms of our purchase and sale agreement with the sellers, they agreed to clean all of that out. And so that was the before, and this is the after of that area. So they did a nice job cleaning all that debris out. There is a pond at the site, and the pond is served by a spring that has proven, even through the drought, to be a pretty consistent source of water. And of course, that pond is filled up with the recent rains. So that is an important resource for terrestrial habitat, watering, as well as cattle watering. And there's an enhancement, habitat enhancement opportunity here with this pond, because the original excavation of the pond was probably about a half an acre in all. And this is just a small portion of the pond that's currently holding water, but that could be expanded to provide more water storage potentially. Eel swimming hole. We're working up towards the top of the property, moving south, and we're looking back down to the north and into the swale that characterizes a goodly portion of the property. There are a lot of native rocks in this area, in this general region, and a lot of them are just scattered about, and many of them have been gathered into piles for various reasons. And this rock also provides habitat for terrestrial species. You see the turbines there, the two on the right are on the subject property, and the ones on the left side of the image are on Park District lands. And here's the property boundary here between the two. Now we're at the top of the property and we're looking northwesterly down below the ranch compound. This is the service road that leads all the way to Byron, and it connects up with Byron Hot Springs Road to the south and east. And most everything you see there is either Park District preserve lands, and then in the way in the distance would be the Los Vaqueros watershed lands. There's a few private farms you see to the right edge of the image, upper right image. This is looking southwesterly at Brushy Peak, and that is Alameda County. So again, we're right on the county boundary here, and those turbines are all on private lands, and it's a different wind farm than the Buena Vista Energy Wind Farm that's on Park District lands. This is swinging the view to the southeast, and that's Bethany Reservoir you see on the left side of the image. In the foreground, that bit of ridgeline that you see is the adjacent Martinez property. This is the one that I mentioned earlier, has an application into the county for developing a solar energy facility. So to summarize the acquisition considerations for this property, it's 80 acres of open space land. It would provide grassland habitat protection, as well as potential for aquatic habitat enhancement with the pond there. The wind lease that comes with the property is particular to the Buena Vista wind farm operation. So the terms are the same as those terms for the leases that we now control for the other portions of the wind farm, where we own the land and control those leases. So that matches up nicely, and that would give the Park District tenant control as landlord of the entire wind farm, with the exception of those two turbines that are located on the adjacent Martinez property. And then this is another great opportunity for partnership with the East Contra Costa County Habitat Conservancy that has been our partner for helping to fund the acquisition of most of Byron vernal pools and a lot of the Vasco Hills open space preserves. And their funding, I will speak to the next slide. So the terms, $930,000 is the purchase price. That includes the income stream from the wind lease, similar to the income streams we receive from the wind leases on the other properties that we've acquired that have are part of the wind farm footprint. Sellers have removed all the debris. We have until January 21st, so this month, to exercise the purchase option and then close of escrow by end of February. So today's action would appropriate a total of $960,000, and that includes $837,000 in federal Section 6 and state Prop 84 grant funds. Those are contributed by the Habitat Conservancy through their program, and that equals 90% of the purchase price for this property. And those funds will be used to pay the balance of the purchase price, closing costs, site safety and security measures as detailed in the staff report, and for total project costs, including previously appropriated funds of $995,700. I'm including this photo of the spring box on the property because in East County, water is gold. So I thought it appropriate to include this with the money slide. So with that, I will stop sharing my screen and be happy to answer any questions about this acquisition opportunity.
I absolutely love that funky landscaping around the ranch site and the outcroppings, just terrific, really terrific. Members of the board, questions?
I'll have something, but maybe should ask people first.
Director Waspy.
I'll take a shot at it. I'm very, very happy we're going to get this property. I'm very, very happy that 90% of it is going to be paid by the Habitat Conservancy, and I love our partnership that we have with them. It looks like a vital area. My only question would be the wind turbines, and I'm wondering, Michael, if you can help me out. So we would have 38 total wind turbines in our possession out there. I know there's a giant plantation of those wind turbines. Does Buena Vista have any other wind turbines other than our property? Do they have private property owners? Do they work with Buena Vista?
Director Waspy, yeah, good questions. The wind farm footprint is there's 38 turbines in all. We currently have 31 of them. This property is another 5, so that would bring us to 36. That would be all of the corresponding leases for those wind farms, with the exception of the adjacent Martinez property, which has the 2 remaining wind turbines that are part of that wind. So that's Buena Vista, now owned by Leeward Energy. It was purchased, the farm, a few years back by Leeward Energy. I'm not familiar with other wind farms that are not that same ownership, but are in that Vasco corridor area.
Okay, so, and as a follow-up, I'm wondering, at the end of it says the leasee has the option to renew the lease for an additional 10-year term. Do we have the ability to say, no, thank you, we'd rather not do that?
Director Waspy, as long as they're in compliance with the lease, which we believe they are, then they have that ability to unilaterally exercise that option if they give timely notice of that, and we fully anticipate they will. The entire wind farm was powered in 2008, I believe it is, and so there was a significant investment in that time, and I think they want to let that full lease term play out. So that would take them through, let's see, their existing lease on this site, as well as the adjacent sites that we own, runs through 2026. And then they all have that option to extend for additional 10 years that would take it through 2036.
Okay. Okay. I hate wind farms, but and if we found something in the future that made it that much worse, I wish we had some more control of that. But I guess we don't. So
Director Wasby, the advantage obviously of not just acquiring the land, but also as part of this deal, as with our other deals, acquiring the rights as lessor is that we control that there is no ability to have a private party that is the lessor negotiate an extension or some other terms. So I mean, we control that. We control the destiny of, with this acquisition, of 36 of the 38 wind turbines for this wind farm.
All right. And all 36 of them have been repowered to the quote, more Raptor friendly turbines.
Yeah, I'm a little vague on the history, but I know there were many more turbines in the past, and they were the old generation. So the repowering project involved removing all of those and putting fewer, larger, and more Raptor friendly turbines that exist today as part of the farm.
Thank
and
you.
our professor, or Dr. Bell, would be able to give a lot more details on all the history of the wind farm and so on.
Great, thank you.
Director Wieskamp. Well, you're muted, Ann.
I'm afraid I've got this cough, so I tend to stay off when I can. Michael, did you take the photographs?
Yes.
They are absolutely stunning. What a good idea to come out there after the rain. It makes rocks and turbines look good.
Yeah.
Do you, and of course, the location is wonderful. That I like the funky landscape where the ranch type place was. It's unique. How close are we with the idea of developing a trail to Brushy Peak? Because, you see it there, doesn't look that far. What a fantastic possibility. Have we thought about that at all? If not, I think we ought to. I don't think we want to go into Vasco Caves, but I think between these two, this point and Brushy Peak might be good.
Dr. Wieskamp, that's an excellent kind of more global question.
Okay.
That I think this acquisition could prompt that.
Yeah.
And suffice it to say, as the board knows, that the acquisitions, most all the acquisitions that we've done in this general vicinity have been, again, in partnership with the Contra Costa County Habitat Conservancy, and through that process, we are with the Conservancy developing preserve management plans and preserve plans that will allow for the habitat protection and a recreational trail opportunities. Nice. So this is in that general area. Absolutely.
Well, I think it's a marvelous possibility, and thank you so much for going after the rain and getting those photographs. It's just stunning now, and the views. No, they have their frailties, but generating power is really important now. I think if we continue to improve it, great. I know these have changed what's happening with Raptors, and we may need to keep improving it, but it is nice to be in control. Thank you very much for the report.
Any other Director Rosario?
I just wanted to make a quick comment. When I saw the pictures of all those trucks, I thought maybe the staff at Burrell dumped them there at the barn. But I just want to say a great acquisition, I think, and along with following up with Director Waspy's thoughts, hopefully it won't be in our time, but maybe somebody will figure out how to take those blades off and convert those towers to solar. Hang solar panels off of those towers instead of moving propellers. So, but great acquisition. Thank you for the presentation.
Director Lane.
Yes, and I want to thank you for the photographs too. And certainly the price is right, and from the vantage point of the Park District.
Director Lane, I'm unable to hear what you're.
I can't hear her either.
Okay, well, first I want to say thanks for the green pictures. Always appreciate that. And comment that the price is right from the vantage point of the Park District. And certainly our partnership with the HCP is invaluable. I think those wind turbines are beautiful, but from my vantage point, they could go because of what they do to raptors and bats and our natural flyers. But I know we're going to have a long-term relationship with them, at least in the coming years. So when I go out there, I certainly enjoy the contrast of these new generation ones and the green hills, and it really is a lovely thing. We'll see how long that lasts. Then I do have a question about the rocks. Are there, and so I'm wondering if there are any rock walls out there. We have rock walls in a couple of places, up from Mission San Jose and a variety of other places. And there's quite a history and controversy about how they got there. And these rocks are pretty impressive, but are there any that are in walls that you know of? It's low walls. Mike?
Director Lane, during my tour out there to take the photos, I didn't encounter any, but it was interesting how firstly, there are so many of those native rock about, and a lot of them have just kind of found their way when they are in movement through rain and erosion and whatnot to kind of form into the gullies. I think you saw a photo or two that showed that kind of characteristic deposition of those boulders that they are in movement, I guess, geologically speaking. They do get around, but the rock piles is mostly what I observed out there. And my guess is that those were gathered, could be by the wind farm operator as part of using those for culverts and erosion control measures and that kind of thing. So you see some of that with native rock and other and brought in gravel and other rock. Yeah, I didn't see any that would take the form of let's say livestock fencing type of stone walls of that nature.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. And thank you again for your work on this. And I do want to also comment that the clarity of the staff report and the land and the acquisition evaluation were both, I thought, written very well. So thank you.
I agree, a really good presentation. Any other comments or questions from the board? Are we?
In the interest of time, I'll just say, yes, I agree with all of the above. And thank you very much, Michael, for a wonderful presentation.
So are we ready for the resolution? Looks to be so. I will take the prerogative and move approval of our authorization to exercise purchase option and transfer and appropriate funds for the acquisition in partnership with the Habitat Conservancy of 80 acres of real property from Kim Owens and Kellen Maness. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Director Lane. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Vice President Coffee, Director Rosario,
Aye.
Director Eccles,
Aye.
Director Corbett,
Aye.
Director Lane,
Aye.
Director Wasby. Oh, there you go. Director Lane, I think I already called you. Director and President Coffee.
Aye.
Okay.
Did we get Director Wasby?
I don't think you called my name.
Oh, Director Wieskamp.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
President Coffee,
Yes.
could I possibly ask for a 10-minute break? I have I'll have to leave for a few minutes to take medication.
Director, I was just about to ask the chief if we could do so, and the chief is
What
nodding.
great minds think alike.
A 10-minute break. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Hello.
There we are. Very tempting to go out back and just keep walking, let me tell you. It's nice out there.
Too bad we couldn't do the board meeting walking like we do our one-on-ones with Sabrina.
Maybe we should do that in the spring. Colin, I'm ready whenever you are.
We have us all. I've got to tell you, Ellen, you just sound so much better.
Oh, thank you. I'm doing good. I've been taking care of myself and some things I needed to do, and I'm good. Thank you.
Good.
Good.
Are we live?
Almost.
Soon.
Okay, you're ready to go.
Thank you.
All right. We had a technical issue where the board's projection was muted. So you could not hear us, but we were hearing you perfectly well. So be aware. Director Corbett, would you repeat the information for Monday's event?
Yes, thank you very much, President Coffey. I just wanted to make sure I invited everybody to our Martin Luther King rally celebration. As most of you know, for many years, the Park District has been a partner to the rally committee. And before COVID, we did these events live, and we celebrate the naming of the Martin Luther King Shoreline Park along Doolittle. But in any event, we will have a rally again this year online. We want to thank the foundation for being a partner to allow us to film this. But we will be celebrating Martin Luther King's birthday Monday at 10 a.m. online, talking about the beautiful park, the work of Martin Luther King, and how his work has, of course, done so many things, including remind people the importance of fighting hard to protect the environment and civil rights. But in any event, so if people can watch the event, it'll be 11 a.m. this upcoming Monday, and the event will probably also be on the website for people to enjoy. So again, thank you everybody, and happy birthday to Martin Luther King on Monday.
Oh, and belated happy birthday to you too, right? On the 1st, I believe.
Oh yes, no, New Year's Eve.
New Year's Eve.
All right. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Nice
Director
time of year to
Corbett.
have a birthday. Thank you very much.
All right.
I'm
Thank
sure
you for
that's
the
better or
announcement.
worse than Christmas.
So I apologize. My apology to the chief and to Captain Love for the delay, and we're back to the next item, which is a report from the Public Safety Division.
Well, good afternoon, President Coffey, Anthony Chaburro speaking, your AGM of Public Safety and your Chief of Police, and also hello to the General Manager, my colleagues and community members who are present. I'm getting a little help with the electronics here as I'm speaking. Thank you so much. Today is a wonderful day. It's also a sad day for us. Captain Love, this is his last presentation, and he is leaving us for the Oakland Housing Authority as part of a transition where he will be the chief of police, which is really quite an accomplishment. We will miss Alan as he leaves a legacy here of steadfast professionalism. He has been part of our journey from good to great, in a sense, our renaissance as a public safety division, covering all aspects of police, fire, lifeguard, fuels, all of that. And in addition to that, he has been a key member of our leadership team, a key partner during really what is arguably one of the most, if not the most difficult time in American policing. We went through COVID. We had the civil unrest following the tragedy of George Floyd, and that continued. And to this day, the men and women of public safety remain dogged, determined, and on duty, as I've said. And Captain Love really has been part of that, and we could not have done it without him. So today, again, it's a sad day. At the same time, for me, I think the best word to describe it is I'm very proud. I'm losing a partner. I'm losing someone whose professional proficiency is only exceeded by who he is as a human being, as a person. Nonetheless, we are most happy for Captain Love. And unless anyone has anything else to say, I know Captain Love is ready to go, but I will turn that back over to you, Mr. President.
All righty. Yeah, we are all very happy. I'm sure I speak for all of us, very happy with this career advancement, Captain Love. We are all sincerely unhappy that you will be leaving us.
Well, thank you. I think this is the time where Director Wieskamp would say, let's bring out the cake. But since we're doing it virtual, I'll say, let's bring on the Ordinance 38.
Does that really replace cake? I don't know.
All right, so I'm going to be sharing my screen.
Thank you, Captain.
Making sure that you can see it. So you should be able to see the Ordinance 38 screen.
Yes.
Perfect, thank you. Good afternoon, President Coffey, members of the board, General Manager Landreth, and other guests. I'm Captain Love, Support Services Commander of the East Bay Regional Park District Police Department. I'm here today to present the biannual staff review of Ordinance 38, which was last revised in March of 2019. Ordinance 38 is a list of general regulations specific to the East Bay Regional Park District. It is legislated by the Board of Directors and is adopted pursuant to the Public Resources Code of the State of California, and it applies to all Park District park owners. Ordinance 38 is posted on the Park District's website for anyone to review. The biannual review is a team approach involving many members from different disciplines within the Park District. I would like to thank everyone who submitted suggestions. Specifically, I would like to thank the Ordinance 38 review team. Chief of Parks, Steve Castile, Management Analyst, Rudy Tumber, District Counsel, Rachel Sater, Assistant District Counsel, Jason Rosenberg, and from Public Safety, Captain Breed, Lieutenant Kocher, and former Administrative Analyst, Heather DeQuincy. To summarize the review process, a request for areas of ordinance sections to be examined or changes is sent to Park District staff. After collecting all of the requests, the review team examines the request to make sure they're all aligned with Park District's mission and vision, and to verify no other ordinance or laws already exist, which would be redundant. Next, members of the Park District's legal team review the request to provide legal guidance or direct and/or request additional research. Then, the review team and legal team make a final review before the suggested edits are presented to various stakeholder groups. Finally, Ordinance 38 edits are presented to the Board of Directors for their adoption. As you can see, this process began almost a year ago in January of 2021. It goes through many layers of the Park District before being brought to you for today. Today is the third public presentation of this information. So the first edit we're going to be talking about is section 400.5. It's an edit to Ordinance 38 regarding camping. This edit clarifies when a person and or group can be removed from the campsite and under what circumstances. The edit defines that a violation of public health or of public safety must occur before the park users are removed from the campsite. This update aligns Ordinance 38 with the laws regarding evictions. The next edit addresses cooking appliances, barbecues, and safety. Currently, personal appliances such as gas or propane camp stoves, portable barbecues, or hibachis may be used in an area that will not scorch, burn, or otherwise damage lawns or tabletops, or in an area that is at least 30 feet away from flammable materials, or where burning fuel such as wood or charcoal is thoroughly extinguished before being disposed of. Disposing of coals in a garbage can or refuse bin is prohibited. These edits add the prohibition to beaches or as posted no barbecue by park staff due to dangerous conditions. Recently, actually not in the recent, but in the past, we've had injuries where toddlers or children have actually stepped into hot coals on the beach because they didn't know that they were there. I apologize for this wall of text. This section may be easier to read in your staff report. And this is an administrative edit to clean up the section covering the prohibition of alcohol in certain areas within the Park District. Alcohol is prohibited in the first set of locations. And those are Sonol, now staging Valmedy Creek, Martinez Shoreline, Miller Knox, Contra Loma, Shadow Cliffs, and were restricted by the Board of Directors. The second set of locations, Crown Beach, Doncaster, and Quarry Lakes, require a Park District alcohol permit to possess any beer or wine. If park users do not possess the permit, then alcohol is not allowed. And I know that the current way that it was read was very cumbersome, and there were dates that were out of date. So we tried to kind of streamline it for easier. People can literally just go down a list and see where alcohol is allowed. In section 410.2, the edit adds the bridge yard at Judge John Sutter Regional Shoreline to a list of approved locations within the park districts which can sell alcoholic beverages. But more information on this section edits are on the next slide. Again, I apologize for the wall of text. The language of section 410.2 was also administratively edited for ease of use and reference. And where it looks like it doesn't look very easy, but I can tell you it's actually much easier to figure out what's going on. So the first section, A, allows for the service of beer and wine. Those are Little Hills, Ardenwood, Fern Cottage, Shoreline, Camp Arroyo, Brazilian Building, and Temescal Beach House. The second section, B, allows for alcohol to be served at the Bridgyard Building and the 2 Park District golf courses. So the difference between A and B, A deals with beer and wine. B actually deals with hard alcohol as well. Those are the 2 golf courses in Judge John Sutter. The third section identifies where alcoholic beverages can be sold at a limited number of events for non-profit purposes. The Pigeon and Sportsman's Clubhouse in Martinez Shoreline, Redwood Archers, Briones Archers, and the Martinez Horsemen. The final section, D, allows for a permit to be issued or an agreement to be approved, which would allow for the service of alcohol outside of the locations above. So that is the anywhere else the Park District Board of Directors or the General Manager sign off on a permit where alcohol can be served. Section 506.2E clarifies those who are using float tubes must pay the quagga mussel inspection fee. That one was so much easier than the alcohol ones. Section 803 is updated to include cats in the list of feral or wild animals. The ordinance prohibits the feeding of these animals at any time on district parklands. Section 808, this update adds slack lines or hammocks to the list of items which cannot be affixed to any building or vegetation within the park district. Slacklining refers to the act of walking, running, or balancing along a suspended length of flat webbing that is tension between two anchor points. Slackline is similar to tightrope walking, except that it is flexible. Hammocks and slacklines can cause safety issues and damage the park district features. We did make some administrative edits in this review. These edits were included in the staff report in a list included in the board packet. One set of edits clarifies that all misdemeanor violations of Ordinance 38 may be classified as infractions. This language already existed in section 301, but language in a few sections, 415, 503.15, 504, and 11, were identified as misdemeanors. Additionally, the table of contents lists some sections as M for misdemeanor versus being enforceable as a misdemeanor or an infraction. Section 106 was updated to include gender-neutral pronouns. And Little Hills and Ardenwood's full names were listed in section 410. A special thanks to those who are listed on the screen. They have made the biennial review much, much easier, and I'm happy to answer any of your questions.
Thank you, Captain Love. I will turn it over to the board members. I need to see the Zoom screen so that I can see if any of my colleagues have any comments or questions. Board members? Director Rosario.
Yeah, thank you, Captain Love. And we are certainly going to miss you, but I think you'll be forwarding the face of the Park District in another agency. So congratulations to you. Regarding 400.5, the very first slide on the campground, can you tell me what happens when there are elderly campers that are under the influence? What do we do with them?
Thanks, Director. So the person who is, say, under the influence and our officers are contacting them, and we're not going to send them driving away. So we're going to take actually several measures to try and get them home if they need to be evicted, whether that is calling a ride or arranging for a ride share, or in an event that we cannot get a hold of anyone, we will take them to county services. So that way they can receive assistance until they can sober up.
Great. Thank you. Yeah, having worked at Anthony Chabot in the past, used to have that a lot.
Yes.
Very much appreciated. Thank you.
Directors. Director Waspy.
Thank you. Alan, it has been a pleasure knowing you and working with you. I wish you all the best in your new career. And also, I have a question on the 400-5. What does this mean? I mean, does this make it harder to evict people or does it make it easier? And then I'm thinking of if it's only when the violation threatens public health or safety. What if I just go up to Anthony Chabot and say, I'm living here and I'm not going to pay? I'm not hurting anybody. Is that, I mean, how do we interpret that?
So thank you for the question, Director Waspy. And I can feel that Rachel Sater is leaning towards the microphone. So I know that she might be able to answer this one for us.
That is amazing, Ellen. One more of your many talents. Director Waspy, this was an edit that we made in order to ensure that Ordinance 38 on its face complied with state law. There's specific notice requirements for evicting campers from various types of parks. And we accept those notice requirements don't apply in the instance where there is a threat to public health and safety. So we will need to comply with those notice requirements in certain types of circumstances, but such as if somebody's simply failing to pay for their campsite. But they don't apply in an instance where public health and safety are threatened. So we wanted to make clear in our ordinance that we will be, you can be removed from the campground summarily if there is a threat to public health and safety. That you look puzzled.
I'm incredibly puzzled. So seriously, can I go to Anthony Chabot with 20 or 30 of my friends and say, I'm not a threat to anybody's public safety, but I'm not going to pay you a dime? I find it to be incredible that just because I'm not threatening anybody or their health or safety, that I can just do what I want at Anthony Chabot Park. Because in some cases, I think I could, using Rosario's example, I think, I bet people could get really drunk or really lots of things, and you wouldn't be a threat to anybody. I'm saying I'm staying at my campsite. I'm not bothering anybody.
Right. Yes, I understand the difficulty there, and I'm sure that Captain Love has encountered some situations, and we have approaches to that are compliant. This amendment was simply to clarify on the face of the ordinance that a certain type of summary eviction is not going to happen unless there is a challenge to public health and safety. And I completely agree. This is a challenging area legally.
So Director Waspy, other remedies also exist within Ordinance 38, Section 602 for trespassing, as well as the Penal Code for trespassing after being asked to leave. Remaining in an area after being asked to leave.
Okay, I'm more confused now, but that's okay. Thanks.
I think Director Waspy, we can look into this more fully and get you a more robust response.
Well, I mean, this is just one amendment. There are other ways, there are other things in there, I assume, which would allow people to, law enforcement to remove people. This is just one of them, right?
Yes, exactly.
And what you're saying is this is incorporating state law. So if anything is confusing, it's the state law. What is camping? What is trespassing? And you need a lawyer to figure that out, or a lot of training. And it could raise some confusing situations, but this is state law, and I understand what you're doing. Other directors, questions or comments? I don't see any. Can we go to the resolution, and can I ask for a motion for approval of the resolution on the amendment of Ordinance 38?
I so move.
It's been moved by Director Lane and seconded by Director Rosario. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes, President Coffey. Director Eccles.
Aye.
Director Lane.
Aye.
Director Waspy.
Aye.
Director Rosario.
Aye.
Courtney's gone. Director Wieskamp.
Aye.
And President Coffey.
Aye. Next item is.
Well, before you go on, I want to say goodbye to
Alan.
Alan too, and just have some cake on us.
Yeah. Good I
Best
think
wishes. I think you'll be a great success and you won't be moving that far away with this new job.
And we will see he and his kids in the parks.
thank you so much for everything.
Thank you all.
General manager's comments, item 6, it says there will be no general manager's comments.
Yeah, thank you, President Coffey. No presentation today. I did want to just remind the board, we do have the redistricting workshop coming up on the 18th. I sent a memo out late last week with the link to the interactive tool and some other questions from the consultant for you to think about ahead of time. I do know in talking to several of you, the tool, there are some issues with it, and I know there was a request for some paper maps as well as some other questions that have come into Eric. Certainly, if you have other questions, please send them directly to him. He's available. Obviously, it's not on the agenda today. He's available to try to answer those ahead of time or be prepared with the consultant to address them at your meeting on Tuesday. I guess if there are others you wanted to put on the record here, it would be okay to address them to me, but certainly we can't have any discussion about them. And that was it, end of my report.
Oh, okay. Item 7, I don't believe, council, we had any reportable actions in closed session.
That's right. Nothing to report from closed session.
Item 8, is there a desire among the board to augment any of the committee reports? Seeing, yes, Director Rosario.
I just wanted to highlight a couple of things.
Certainly.
In the finance report or committee, I just wanted to second what Beverly Lane's concerns about concessionaires not following proper procedures as far as keeping track of their financial. And that's something that's been brought up before. And I always question is whether, why are we doing business with people that aren't cooperative in meeting their financial obligations to the park district. And then under, let's see, was that operations? Director Wieskamp. Oh, yes, it was in operations from 1217. I just wanted to also second her her advocacy for alternate paper products for dog waste. It would be, it's the right thing to do. I think there's a lot of plastic going on. So just wanted to say those two things. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. That brings us to board comments. Would you
sure
be fine with going first, Director Rosario? We'll go first. I'll then move up my screen to Director Waspy and then over to Director Wieskamp. So Director Rosario.
Great, thank you. Luckily, we had a nice kind of little vacation. On 12/28, I attended the special closed session for hiring a general counsel, and I just wanted to thank my colleagues on the board for coming to a conclusion on selecting general counsel, and I thought it was a very good experience. And then I attended on January 6th, I attended the Lake Mary Breakfast Club, and I heard the Mayor Schaaf give her state of the city, and it's very encouraging. And but also she pointed out that the homeless situation is that the city of Oakland's been able to house 2,000 people annually for the last 3 years, but there's still another 6,000 people to deal with. So it's a continuing problem, and I think every city is in that same situation. And then on January 6th, also January 6th was a busy day. I met with Constance Taylor. She agreed to do a presentation to the Alameda County API electeds. We meet monthly, and it was my turn to do a presentation, and I asked Constance to do her her presentation on Chinese Americans in the parks. And she graciously accepted. Thank you. And then also on the 6th, I met with a constituent who was interested in, she's from the Philippines, and she had her mother's maiden name is Briones, and she thought if there was a connection, so hooked up with some historical aspects and shuttled her off to our historian there, Director Lane, to see if she could help. And then on the 6th, I also met with the AFSCME 2428, and that was a good, productive conversation. So that's it for me. So thank you. Again, thank you so much for allowing me to be president, and it was an honor to serve. So thank you all.
Thank you. Director Waspy.
Thank you. So I also on December 28th attended the general counsel selection process, and I agree it was a great process, and I think we've got a wonderful general counsel. On January 1st, I did my annual New Year's hike up Mission Peak. It was great, beautiful day. The peak was gorgeous, and there were lots of people there enjoying that great park. On January 2nd, I went down to Hayward Shoreline for the King Tides, and what a great example of what seems to be gonna occur pretty soon. Those levees hiked out, and as I was coming back, I hit the height of the high tide and covered the levees. It's really an amazing feeling being out there. You hike out on the trail and you walk back in water, and it's interesting. It is a great example of what we face, some of the challenges. On January 6th, I attended with the Legislative Affairs and Government Affairs folks. We hosted Senator Alex Padilla's staff member from this area, and we sort of described some of those things that we expect that will occur out in the Hayward Shoreline, and some of the rehabilitation projects we want to do, and some of the great work we've already done with HASPA forming a shoreline master plan out there. And she was very interested, pleased, and excited that we're moving ahead with this, and somebody's doing something, or somebody's planning something, and hopefully at our ask, obviously, it was a little help from the federal government and taking care of some of these projects. That was kind of it for me. I want to thank Dee for his great work again. And I want to note in the general manager's reports, the retirees, another who's who of folks leaving the district, and many years of service, and many great people who we're going to miss, but wish them a great retirement. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll go to Director Wieskamp, and then Director Eccles, and lastly, or next, Director Lane. And you're on mute.
I just know you don't want to hear me coughing. I want to agree with those who've already talked about selection of our general counsel. I'm looking forward to meeting the real person. So hopefully we can all be together at the next board meeting. And in my case, seeing her face to face. I would like to report that we're going to be planting 5 Valley Oaks at Brushy Peak at the appropriate time, whenever our staff says that is the right thing to do. And certainly everyone will be invited to that occurrence. I recently spoke to 2 Pleasanton hikers who reminded me that in the past, we have looked at the old olive groves at Pleasanton Ridge and talked about, should we try to resurrect that agricultural history? We now have grapes at Chouinard. We have olives there. There may be some other agricultural history in other parks. I think we ought to take a look at it, because that is an important part of these lands, and just see if it makes sense to try to do something. And maybe we could work with some people who are in the business at this time, and perhaps encourage some young people. We've got things going over at Ardenwood. Maybe we could do something elsewhere. And I'd like to say that today, again, I continued handing out our calendars. And these days, people get so many calendars, you'd think they'd all say no. But I went in my bank and all 3 women said yes. And I also had the activities coming up and they said yes to that too. So let me tell you, people love the Park District and they love our material. So thank you, staff, for putting that all together for us. And that's it.
Thank you, Ann. Director Eccles.
Great. Well, like some of my fellow, and I shouldn't say fellow, I guess, some of my other colleagues on the board, I also attended the special closed session on hiring a new general counsel, and I'm very excited to welcome her later this month to the district. On the 5th of January, I attended a health briefing by the Dr. Nicholas Moss, Alameda County Health Officer. It was a special briefing for elected officials. Very interesting to get information from him and ask some questions. On the 6th, I attended the Contra Costa Mayor's Conference. They had a really fabulous presentation on the Rosie the Riveter National Historic Park Trust. Letitia Moore, who's the president of the trust, and also the executive director, Sarah Pritchard, both spoke and presented. Very good. And then on the 7th, I had my one-on-one meeting, walking meeting with our general manager in Wildcat Canyon Park, and spent a couple of hours out there. It was really, really very nice. So I really appreciate being able to do these meetings while we're out walking in these wonderful parks. Over the holidays, really took advantage of our parks as well with family, especially Tilden, the steam trains, Merry Ground, nature area, etc., as well as McLaughlin East Shore. And wanted to say once more, congratulations and thank you to Director Rosario on his wonderful job over the last year. And congratulations and thank you in advance to Director Coffey incoming. I know you'll do a great job as well. Very excited to have you in this role, and wanted to wish everybody a happy and healthy new year.
Thank you, Director. Director Lee.
Thank you. Well, we just got through the holidays successfully, and no one in my family got COVID, I'm happy to announce. Unlike people I am acquainted with all over. So Omicron is clearly easy to catch, so I hope everybody will be really careful. I did go to one matinee, and there were 5 people in the theater. So I would recommend, if you need a change, that you might consider a matinee that's not a family event. So I've been following redistricting, trying to understand what was sent to us, and paying attention to what's been happening at other districts. It's been very interesting to see how the county supervisors districts are set up, and to acknowledge that we're going to have some different congressional members as a result of the redistricting. I went to a couple of all of possible meetings where we talked about our new general counsel, and I'm looking forward to having her join us later this month. I keep thinking that I'll go to check out some king tides. And I'm going to call Dennis and say, I'd like to join you at a king tide somewhere. I did end up seeing some photographs of what the king tides look like in the Dotson Marsh. And there was a lot of water, and it came up not far from the boardwalk trail. I mean, it was impressive and somewhat scary as we think about the future. Of course, I've gone on the Iron Horse Trail a couple of times, and I have emailed about with some of these folks from San Ramon with regard to the Iron Horse Trail. It's a complicated story, And one of the issues is that we really, when people have events on the trail, they need to follow what they agree to do. And if you have thousands of people on the trail in an event, or close to thousands, they need to respect the rest of the public. So hopefully people will settle down on that issue. I also went to Mayor's Conference and heard a really nice Rosie the Riveter presentation, which did make me think that it's been a while since we've done a full-blown presentation on the Park District at the Mayor's Conference. You know, we've had reports and things, but and it was good to hear about Rosie, but Rosie is just one of 4 National Historic Sites, and the Park District is the Park District. So we should do that. And then finally, I would like to ask that I get a picture of the Coyote Hills building drawing. So if Ren would send that to me and maybe other board members, because since this is going to be a template for them, I think it'd be interesting to have one and really take a closer look at it. So thank you again, Dee, and I'm looking forward to a sparkling new year with our sparkling new president. I don't know where that came from.
I don't know either, and I'm trying to figure it out.
Anyway, thank you, and we'll see you next week.
I'm sure it was well-intentioned. Thank you, Director Lane. I also attended the General Counsel recruitment meeting, and I'm looking forward to working with our new General Counsel. On the 5th, I got to meet with the Deputy General Manager, Dr. Alvarez, to go over board committee planning issues. On the 7th, I met again with the Deputy General Manager and our clerk of the board to get our committees structured and assigned. On the 7th, I had the opportunity to have a one-on-one hike with AGM Jim O'Connor, where we got to discuss all things trails. And I did, over the holidays, have the pleasure of attending a number of programs led by our naturalists. The last hike of the year, which is literally the name of the hike, on December 31, out at Diablo Foothills, and we did manage to spot some falcons at the Castle Rock Formation, and that made my whole week. I hadn't seen that before. On the 2nd, I attended the King Tides hike out at Big Break. Naturalists and docents were out. The water in 2017 inundated the pier there. It actually flooded the pier, got that high. On that Sunday at 2:30, the height of the King Tide, the water came to the bottom of basically the foundation of the pier. Didn't get quite high enough to cover it, but it was still interesting saying, having spent years out at Big Break, you just don't see that very often. On the 3rd, I attended a Zoom program that was produced by Kevin Damstra out at Black Diamond with a presentation of the King Tides going on around the district. It was a real great production. It's in our Zoom. It was either Zoom or Facebook digital work that is probably still available. And this Sunday, I sauntered into Tilden Park, and among the masses that were enjoying Tilden Park this Sunday, I think we are finding with this latest surge that people are returning to the parks as the safe place to be It's really heartening to see the young families with the young kids that are just teeming out there in the parks, especially on the weekends. And it's great that we can provide that safe and healthy activity. I went on a nature walk that reminded me with a naturalist that reminded me of a naturalist-led program I had taken. It was basically the same nature walk 20 years earlier with my little kids. And just very nostalgic experience, and enjoyed it thoroughly. And that was it for me. And we should be ready to adjourn. Is there any further notes, comments, observations? I don't see any, so I should note that it's 4:48 and we stand adjourned.